Welcome to Brainstorming America. Ken Rollins here, and with the co-host, John Merrill. Good to see you, John.
Hey, Ken.
Yeah, been traveling on the road.
You know it.
You ever put it in park?
When I have to.
Lord have mercy. Anyhow, I got a bunch of notes, if you don't mind, the things that I've looked at we subject to talk about today, and I'm just going to throw them at you and see what your thoughts on them. I got mine, and let's see what yours are. Mine.
Yes, sir.
The first one will be Bidenomics is dead.
Well, I'd say that's a great day for America.
Absolutely.
Because when you're considering what we had with Biden economics as opposed to Reaganomics, there's no comparison. The thing that we saw with President Ronald Reagan, our 40th president, when he introduced the changes that needed to occur in order to stimulate our economy and to make sure that our nation returned back to its place of prominence, rightful place of prominence. We're in absolutely no comparison to what we're seeing today with the failed economic policies that have been introduced by the 46th president, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr.
I've seen a guy at Walmart a couple of days ago, and you'd think about that movie with the banjos in it and all that kind of guys. Deliverance. He would look like straight out of Deliverance. And I asked him something about the Biden. You're putting something in my car, and he was buying. We struck up a conversation, and I brought up the Biden thing, and he says, "You know what he did? Said when he went in the office, he went down there and said everything that Trump had done, there was a red spot by it, a red dot by it. So he went down and he put a blue right through that red, and just everything that Trump had done for this country, he canceled it. He's the oil and all that stuff." And I thought, when that old boy left there, I said, most people would say his IQ is about 4, but he had it nailed. He just said,
he had it figured out.
Yeah, Bidenomics.
You didn't hear any dueling banjos with him talking.
No. But he knew exactly what he was saying, and everything that Trump had done in a positive, he took it as a negative. All right. The next issue is our Jews in America. We got a lot of Jews in this country, and we've always protected them. They are under a siege now, all over the country. They are afraid to say that they're from it, afraid to identify these little things they wear on their head. I forgot about that, what it's called, but there's some of them that wear them over in New York and the cities, identifying themselves as Jews. They wear pigtails, and they're doing away with that. They're trying to fix themselves so they people don't recognize them as Jews.
Yes, sir.
And classes, over and over, the kids are being taking themselves out of college. They're afraid.
Absolutely, they are. And rightfully so. And we've seen the results of some of those things on national TV with the testimony that we had from the University of Pennsylvania's president, which has resulted in her resignation, from the president of Harvard University, which should have resulted in her termination. There are so many examples of the lack of leadership that is ongoing throughout our country, where this particular group of people is not being protected just because they're U.S. citizens from a Jewish lineage. That's a major problem. The Bible teaches us, and it tells us unequivocally, that the Jews are God's people, and that we have been called to help protect these individuals, and that's something that we need to get a clearer understanding of whenever they are being hit upon, whenever they are being singled out. It's the same thing with us. I'm reminded of Martin Niemöller's excellent poem that was penned in the 1930s when he said, "First they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the trade unionist, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. And then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak out because I was not Jewish. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me." That's where we are today, and that's why it's so important that we speak up and help protect the Jewish families and the Jewish community.
Absolutely. It's a scary situation to be for me personally. The FBI had put out a warning, updated yesterday, for us to be, he was saying nationwide, be on the lookout for terrorists. And it starts, he would never say it was, but it's because of what's coming across our southern border and our northern border through Canada. So we're getting them everywhere. So everybody that you and I see today needs to be looking out at the people that are near them. What are they looking for? Is somebody at a water plant looking into something? Or somebody looking at the grid or something where there's substations or things like that with our electricity? All of the different things that we should be aware of. If you got somebody, we've got several within a few miles of us here. We have several substations.
Ken, you've said it so many times before on the show, situational awareness, understanding that whenever there is an incident that has the potential to occur, you've got to make sure if you see something that you say something.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that Ken is reminding us of today, and I think is so very vital to the continued success of our nation.
Another thing that of note is Ayanna Pressley, I think that's the way you pronounce her name. She's one of the woke people in the Congress, has introduced a bill that would allow, as you're the former Secretary of State, she's introduced a bill to allow convicted felons serving their time. While they're serving time and they have a life without parole, they should be allowed to vote as felons.
Well, I do think that it's something that we need to talk a little bit more about, and we will right after this break, because there's a couple of different conversations that need to take place about that particular item. But we hope you'll come back and join us right after this break of the 46th episode of Brainstorming America.
And welcome back to Brainstorming America. Ken Rollins here. John, and we're here with John Merrill, the co-host. John, we went to a break. We're talking about that bill that Ayanna Pressley had introduced about giving convicted felons permission to vote.
Yes, sir.
You want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I will. And I think this is such an important topic. And the reason it's important is because this is an ongoing conversation in states all across the union. And I think it's important to understand the difference between being convicted of a crime that's a disqualifying felony, which could be a crime of moral turpitude, a crime against humanity, killing someone, poisoning the water system, disrupting the electrical grid, doing the things that cause all of us turmoil and chaos and puts all of us at risk, as opposed to doing certain things that might result in a conviction and you actually serving time. But if you've not been convicted of a disqualifying felony, then you ought to be able to continue to vote. But we need to find a way to make sure that those people pay the dues that they owe society. But if you have been convicted of a disqualifying felony, like the ones that I mentioned just a few moments ago, we need to make sure that those people are punished, and there's additional requirements that need to be introduced, such as losing the right to vote. When I was the Secretary of State, I had a conversation, a very heated conversation, with a former Secretary of State of one of our New England states. And he told me that even if someone murdered a person, if they decapitated that person, if they dismembered that person, if they put them in a box and put them in a fireplace and burned them to ashes, that person should still have the right to vote because they could still fog a mirror. And I said, what's the matter with you? Mm-hmm. I mean, seriously, if somebody has that perspective, I want to know how they were raised, because they've got a real problem. They've got problems other than trying to determine who should be eligible to vote and who shouldn't be eligible to vote. We need to make sure that those people are far, far away from a ballot box.
I bet you some of the viewers are already saying, why would a legislator want that to happen? Well, think about this. If a congresswoman, in this case, Democrat, gets you that right to vote, when your ballot comes through the prisons, are you going to vote for a Republican? Or are you going to vote for a Democrat? And the discussion in New York City this morning on the network was, just like with these people coming across the border, those are all Democrat votes coming in here.
Of course they are.
And that's prisoners being given the permission to vote or more.
But I also think it's important to remember this, Ken. It's important to remember in Alabama law would indicate that if you are incarcerated and you choose to vote, to participate in the electoral process, you're not voting where that prison is located. For example, if it's in Atmore in Escambia County, if it's in Athens in Limestone County, if it's in Talladega in Talladega County, you're not voting where you're incarcerated. You can vote, but you have to vote absentee. So you actually vote where your home residence is. And that also prevents people from being elected to the city council because of the very thing that you talked about. It prevents people from being elected to the legislature or people being elected to Congress because of the block vote that might occur from those incarcerated individuals. And I think that needs to be an adopted law in all 50 states.
That's the reason I think that you're going to get a call from Donald Trump when he gets reelected to be as Secretary of State, take care of this stuff, because you got an eye for it that most don't have. But anyhow, the average person is wondering about that border. And this morning it was the worst. I don't know if you saw the overhead shots. It was thousands and thousands come in, and they said that they were coming. They were telling the reporter from Fox. They were told that we were told to come. Well, they said that there is getting information from the people that's harvesting the people. You got, what do they call the people out there that moving the bodies are saying we got to hurry with the elections coming, so we're going to see more and more people coming rather than less, and they're going to be in your neighborhood.
No doubt.
So, with 5,000 immigrants a day being pushed into America without even going through any kind of questioning.
Yes, sir.
No testing.
No customs checks at all.
No, and they're having no health checks, nothing. They're just being bussed.
You were talking about the mules a while ago and how those individuals are transporting legal property, illegal property, illegal aliens, illicit drugs. All of those things are being done by those individuals that we know as mules.
Yeah, and one brought a group up to the wall that they had taken a torch and cut out a part of the Donald Trump's wall. And one of the mules had brought a whole group, maybe 100, and they was coming. They having to step over a piece, and they step over and run, step over and run. And then when he got through, he goes like this. The mule did, face covered and everything, and saluted the guard, just making a mockery of what we got going on down. This thing with Hunter Biden, it's head in the news, and people out there, I don't think they understand what that's all about. First of all, he didn't pay his taxes. You and I have to pay our taxes. He also was dealing with foreign governments without permission to do so. He had access to information, our information, through his father and others, to pass on to those countries like China and Ukraine and stuff at the time. So he's got some heavy duty stuff on it. So it's really important. But my thing is, no matter what to do, your daddy can pardon him. So
well, no doubt about that. But we don't want to pardon you. We want you to join us for the last exciting segment of this week's episode of Brainstorming America right after this break.
Welcome back to Brainstorming America. Here with John Merrill. And John, when we left, we were talking about, what were we talking about?
Hunter Biden?
Hunter Biden. Them 9 felonies he's got. And not paying his debt, not paying his taxes, and making those phone calls, dealing with, he was working for a company in Ukraine, a company, oil company. He knew nothing about oil, but he was making millions and millions of dollars doing all that. Here's a man that don't have a job, didn't even have a car, but he has $50 billion coming in from China, 15 million from Botswana, or different countries were sending him money, and you know.
He's got access to the big man.
Yeah, and he owns some some art. You seen any of his art?
I have not.
You didn't see that art?
I hope I don't.
Oh man, it looked like to put some paint on the paper and turn the cat loose, but. That's about what they look like, and people paid hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh Lord!
Yeah, $500,000 for it. And so he left some of that to his daughter, the new daughter over in Arkansas. He left her some of his painting. Was that nice?
How thoughtful.
That reminds me of the fellow that was in court one time for not paying his child support, and he listened to all the stuff going back and forth. And it was so bad, everybody in the courtroom was crying because that woman had been mistreated, her kids and all that stuff. The old fellow that owed all the back child support was sitting there listening to it. So the judge says, "Okay, Mr. Jones, I'm going to order, I'm going to give Ms. Jones every month she's going to get $550 from you." He said, "Thank you a lot, Judge. I'll try to put in a couple dollars myself." He didn't realize that was his money this stuff talked about. I thought it was nice of him to do that too.
For sure.
And the Secretary of State, your old counterpart out in Colorado, she was really happy about that vote with the can you explain that?
Well, I can by saying this. She's
Trump.
The poorest excuse for a chief election official as there is today in the 50 states or the District of Columbia. She is a partisan hack who has a specific goal, and that is to make Colorado the most democratically friendly state that there is in the Union. She's had one goal since she took office in 2019, and that one goal is to find a way to end Donald Trump's presidency, and then to make sure once he was defeated for re-election in 2020 that he's never able to run for elective office again. But there's a problem for Jenna Griswold between that particular location and November of 2024, and it's called the United States Constitution. And the Constitution was adopted September 17th, 1787, and there's a provision in the law that talks about what the qualifications are for someone to serve as President of the United States. They are, you have to be a natural-born U.S. citizen, or you have to make sure that if you were born on a place that is occupied by the United States outside our country, you have to be a resident of the United States for 14 years once you return. You also have to be at least 35 years of age. But it does not say that you cannot be convicted of a disqualifying felony or a felony in general. So the Supreme Court of Colorado that has taken this case should have read the U.S. Term Limits LLC versus Thornton in 1994 in the state of Arkansas. And then they would have seen that the United States Supreme Court actually ruled that the course that they have taken was a course that was mistaken. And because of that, that case resulted in that individual achieving ballot access, just like it will for Donald John Trump in November of 2024.
And the reason I brought that here, I know you would know about it, but when that could also, if it was allowed to happen, it would not just be Colorado. We would see that like wildfire, 50-something states. Whoever you didn't like in West Virginia,
absolutely,
whatever, you could find something. It wouldn't be the January 6th stuff. You can find any number of things to disqualify someone.
Well, they don't like the tie they wear. They don't like the color of their eyes.
Yeah.
They don't like how tall they are or what sex they are.
Well, it was funny to me that the Supreme Court that made this decision was a 7-person court with 4 Republicans and 3 Democrats. Wait a minute, that's reverse. There's 3 Republicans and 4 Democrats. And that's the way the vote was, 4-3. The Democrats voted for it and the Republicans voted no. So we've got a very divisive country, to say the least.
Well, unfortunately, when you're in a position of jurisprudence, you have one charge, and that charge is for you to make sure that you're ruling on the law, the letter of the law, the rule of the law, not on what your opinion is about a particular individual or that particular topic or what you think the law says. It's about what the law does say and how you interpret that along with the other justices that are a part of that court to make sure that we maintain the integrity of the judicial system.
Just so the people that's watching can realize how sane our agencies are, our cities, our counties, whatever. The city of San Francisco has come to a determination. When you see San Francisco today, there's a picture that tents and round top tents, pointed tents all over the city for the homeless. And the superintendent, who is really in charge of San Francisco, she explained why that is. Homelessness is due to one thing. Let me see what I got to look this up and make sure it's capitalism. Now, how does rich people causing all those people to be on the street? That's
well, what that tells me is she needs to experience capitalism herself. She actually needs to get out and get a real job outside of state government or municipal government. And if she did, then she'd be in a much better position to help advocate for the people that she actually is supposed to be serving in San Francisco. When you have a map in your community that shows feces on the ground so people won't step in it or go that direction when they're walking, you lose all credibility with me. But fortunately, you haven't lost credibility with us. We're so excited that you chose to join us again this week for the 46th episode of Brainstorming America. We hope you'll be back with us again next week.